Hello and welcome to another episode of the Doster, T.O. and Fanta podcast, the DTF podcast. I feel very left out here on this Monday morning. For the people that are listening to this, Jon and Terrence just spent the last 10 minutes talking about all of the details of their CAA broadcasting and the fact that they are the go-to voices of the Colonial Athletic Conference, talking about coaches, talking about players, talking about games that they watch. And I still feel so left out. This is the first time that I've spoken on this Zoom in about 10 minutes, I would say. And if you guys listen to this, you know I like to hear my own voice. So I feel very left out in the moment. But gentlemen, what's going on, man? It was a great weekend of college basketball. A lot of storylines, a lot of things to dive into. Kansas State, baby, the Big Ten is completely, I don't even know what to make of it. We got a lot to get into. First and foremost, though, gentlemen, how are we doing? Terrence, how you feeling, man?
Man, I am fantastic. I'm happy to be here with you. There's been a lot of good stuff happening. I had the chance to call a Charleston game. You talk about CAA. That was fun. But I hate that you're in your feelings, Doster. Other than that, life's good. Played my first church league game. I think I went 2 of 34 from the field. Couldn't throw it in the ocean, but did end up with 15, 6, and 6. So like running clock, 15-minute halves. I'll take that stat line. Got to the free throw line. Needed to get to the free throw line because I couldn't throw it in the ocean.
There you go. Let me ask you guys this real quick, since you just mentioned it. Charleston, they're ranked. They look like they are for real. T.O., Fanta, you guys both said this while we were off air that they are for real. Fanta, just kind of break down this team. Why are they so good? Because I've watched like snippets of them here or there. I watched some of the games earlier on in the year when they played in the the Charleston Classic games that they won. So what is it about this team that makes them so good?
You don't know where it's coming from their offense. They've got different scoring threats that are versatile and quick. You look at where they are, KenPom adjusted tempo. They sit at 37th in the country. Top 80 offense, top 100 defense. You're not going to see that completeness from a mid-major, but Charleston's got it. And Pat Kelsey has his team off of a miss. They're better defensively than they get credit for. I think T.O. would agree. Off of a miss, they're running. As an outlet passing team, they're up there with the best teams in the country. They get up the floor so quickly. And guys, their guard play is balanced, unique in its own way between Ryan Larson, Rain Smith. I look at Dalton Bolin as the tone setter. Dalton Bolin, his nickname is Psycho D. Anybody with a nickname of Psycho D tells me that you are a leader, that you are energy constantly. And that reflects his head coach, Pat Kelsey, who demands hard work. If you haven't seen or heard Pat Kelsey in an interview or in a setting, just watch him coach a game or listen to him for a couple minutes. You're going to want to run through a brick wall because that's what Pat's done. They've got a big in Ante Brzovic, who's the glue that keeps it all together. I think he's their most important player, Terrence, just because he can rebound the ball. He's you can get him back to the basket. He makes things happen in the post. But to me, the thing with Charleston is you can't sit there and say we're going to take this away because it could easily come from somebody else. And for me, their win over Delaware over the weekend, Ben Burnham keeps stepping up and he comes in off the bench. And that tells you they've embraced their culture. It doesn't matter who starts the game, who comes in off the bench. They are a legit force to be reckoned with because they're very difficult to guard, T.O.
They are. And it is sometimes even Ante Brzovic, who's 6'10", 235 pounds, he gets a board and he'll just initiate the break himself. There's no outlet. Like they have so many different guys that get a board and go. Dalton Bolin came from West Liberty. He's in his 6th year of college hoops. He used to teach a class at West Lib. He taught a class at West Liberty, his D2 school, before transferring to College of Charleston. That says all you need to know. They've got all these old dudes, and they have a guy in Ryan Larson who settles things down, a Wofford transfer. Guys, they're old. They all fit the mix of a bunch of guys that really want to win at the Division I level, and they keep getting better because they're still learning how to play with each other. But a couple things, they're about the right stuff. They all run their butt off, and none of them have to play above like 23, 24 minutes. And whenever you're able to do that, you can empty the tank and know you're coming out. You referred to Burnham, Fanta. He scored 6 or 8 straight points in the second half, had 2 blocks, 4 rebounds, and he did it in a 3.5 minute span. And then he sat his butt down at the media. Like it was just like one thing after another. They're a mature team. They're an old team. They play really hard. You go from Burcevic to Babacar Faye, who's just another 6'9", 210-pound athlete that can get a rebound and just go. That's an impressive bunch. And there's just so many guys. And Pat Kelsey, I know people are going to question, like, has he done enough? But you want somebody that can showcase a program, somebody that's going to be able to recruit. He's got a top 30 recruiting class in the country.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this, guys. Let me ask you this.
Texas.
Are they good enough? Are they good enough to – right now they are like in that kind of 10, 11 seed line in most bracket projections, right? They are 51st in the net. They're top 100 on KenPom. The issue with them right now is that a lot of these like kind of middling wins that they picked up, Colorado State, Richmond, Old Dominion, at Towson,
Virginia Tech lost 4 in a row.
Davidson, like those are all quad 3 wins. Virginia Tech is now a quad 2 win. Their second best win right now is at home against Kent State. So I think that if they keep winning, they're going to have a chance to be an at-large team. That whether it's a 10, 11, 12 seed, I think that they're probably going to be good enough to get in, even if they don't win the CAA tournament. Let me ask you this, though. Are they good enough to win a game once you get to the dance? Like, is this a team that can make a run to the Sweet 16? Are they that dangerous? Are they the 12-5 upset that you're locking in right now that you got to take?
Oh, if they're a 12, that 5 just got a death sentence. It's a horrible – that would be a horrendous draw for a 5 seed.
Yeah.
Horrendous. Because you're playing a team with grown men that moves the basketball. You know who they remind me of? They remind me of Mike Young's Wofford team a couple years ago that ended up in an 8-9 game, I want to say. And
7-10, it was Kentucky that they played, remember?
7-10. They played Seton Hall. They beat
Kentucky,
Seton Hall.
Right?
And they played Kentucky, and they were right in the game. I think that it'll be a similar arc for Charleston. I think they will win a tournament game. I would not want to play them on 4 or 5 days where they can prepare and Kelsey can get his dudes ready. T.O., you've seen them, so you know what I mean by this. They are such a connected team, and nothing rattles them at all. They just play. They're a next play team. That's what I always look for. And this year, that's really important. And then you're asking me, could they make the Sweet 16? Yes, they could. Do you know why? We don't know in this sport right now who the best 16 teams are. And we sure as hell aren't going to get the best 16 in March Madness because the system as is doesn't give us that because it's the best postseason, the wackiest postseason in sports. So they are good enough. Wednesday night is huge. A terrific matchup at UNCW. Takeo Siddle has done an amazing job taking over in that position for Kevin Keats and rolling with the Seahawks. I really like that team. They've got a couple of kids, Shaquem Phillips, Trezarian White, Malik Harden-Hayes. They defend the hell out of you guys. Their defense is elite. So it's Charleston's terrific offense against UNCW's great defense. Wilmington has a very underrated home court advantage. It'll be rocking there. And UNCW on the season, guys, they have 3 losses. The losses came to North Carolina, UConn, and Oklahoma. That's it. They've won 13 in a row. They're really good. And that's a huge game for Charleston. If Charleston wins that game at Wilmington on Wednesday, then, man, are they set up. They are really going to be set up.
Mm-hmm. All right, so before we get into our overreactions of the week, I do think that one of the biggest narratives of this college basketball season is that there really is no great team. There's no definitive number 1 team in college basketball. One of my takes, T.O., is that I think that there's a bunch of teams that in a normal year would be like the 7th or 8th best team in America. There's a dozen of them, but I don't think that there's anyone in a normal season that you'd look at and say, okay, that's one of the best teams in college basketball. Am I right? Am I wrong? What do you think?
I would argue to the contrary. That's what I was saying earlier, I'm pretty sure. But I would argue to the contrary because there's just more talent in the field this year. That extra year of eligibility changes everything. I mean, look at some of the guys that are playing well this year. It's not just one team. It's not just 2 teams. Look how old Tennessee is. UConn's got old guys. Like Joey California, the dude's old. Like, and he's a crucial piece if they're going to win. Whenever they need to win ugly, they need somebody to spark them off the bench. He's a big guy, and he's an extra year guy. So there's a lot of players that are in that mix. I think it broadens the the talent across the top of college basketball. And I think it's a good thing. I would almost argue to the contrary, to where like these teams are such good teams that you had all this talent. Maybe in 2015, you've got 3 or 4 that are in the top 5 or 6, like, because there's so much more in the pot this year, if that makes sense.
So who would be, both for both of you guys, who would be the top tier this year in college basketball? Because I think that's a really interesting conversation.
Yes. So I've got a top tier, and it was hard to put together. Honestly, I don't think that there's a ton of separation here, and I do think any one of these teams could beat the other on a given day. I have 8 teams. Okay. 8 teams in my top tier. Here we go. Houston, who I want to say right now, I think in 2 or 3 weeks, everyone's going to be like, they're the best team in college basketball. They're number 1. They're the best team, which they are number 1 in the AP poll. They're number 1 in my Fox Sports weekly rankings. They play in the American, so it's going to be an easy take for people to make. Don't overreact. I think they're really, really, really good. But when you play in a conference like that, it skews our thinking sometimes of you. Houston's 1. Kansas is in tier 1. They've more than proved themselves. Tennessee's in tier 1. Mm-hmm. UConn stays in tier 1. Absolutely, they do. Purdue gets respect from me because I actually thought Purdue just had their most impressive week of the season. They lost at home to Rutgers. I thought for sure they'd lose another game. I would have picked them. I mean, I thought Ohio State would beat them. Purdue showed me something this week. So they stay in tier 1. Alabama, absolutely in tier 1. And the biggest surprise in tier 1 from what I thought at the start of the season, Arizona and UCLA.
Yep. I'm there with that. Yeah, that's tier 1. I would be remiss not to throw a couple of others kind of in that. Well, I guess I would go tier 2. I mean, it's still pretty big as well. I mean, there's just a lot of teams. I like that. Was it 8 that you had?
Is there someone I'm missing? Is there someone I'm missing?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Maybe Texas, but they've had so much going on. It's just so difficult for those kids. They're top 20 in both offense and defense, John. They've got their X's and O's guys still there, and Bob Donwald. Rodney Terry's done a fine job so far. Can they be at that part without their coach? Just don't know, right? So I think they would go down to tier 2, but those 8, it's hard for me to find fault in any of those.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is I'm not 100% convinced that Arizona should be at that level in this very moment. And we can get into why later on. That's a tease for one of our overreactions, but I'm a little bit concerned about them. But beyond that, I think you're exactly right. My thing with Houston is I don't think we're really going to be able to know what they are. Like they basically play Memphis twice and that's it the rest of the year. Right. I don't think that there's anything else on their schedule that is going to, that kind of pops off. So I think it's kind of, they're in a little bit of that Gonzaga situation, right? Where it's hard to really know what exactly they are. Because even if you look at some of the ones that they have so far this year, like their best win is probably St. Mary's at this point, right? It's either St. Mary's or at Virginia, depending on how you feel about either of those 2 teams. And I wouldn't put either of those 2 teams in the conversation for a contender for like even the Elite 8, you know?
No.
St. Mary's is in the top 10 at KenPom now.
Yeah, but in the
St. Mary's, their computer numbers are really good, but like it's St. Mary's. What have they done to prove that they are that good, right? I get it, but they also lost to Washington. They lost at home to New Mexico. They lost to Colorado State. So yes, they look very good in the computer numbers, but like they have 4 losses, and 3 of those losses are to non-tournament teams.
Yeah.
Like I just, what are we doing? This is an example of why like sometimes KenPom can be a little bit flawed when you're looking at things.
Well, Creighton's at number 17 at 9-7 on KenPom. Like that's also an issue.
Yeah, there's 2 sides of that.
Well, there's a with Kalkbrenner and without Kalkbrenner Creighton team.
Yeah,
that one's pretty obvious.
Yep. Yeah, I think I'm with you there. I'm at the point where I would say that Kansas is the team that I'm most scared of in college basketball right now. I don't know if they're the best team.
How the waves change over the last month for you.
Well, they found a way to get KJ Adams going, man. Like we said it last week. We don't need to reiterate this, but when you have that 5-man that can kind of space the floor and do what he does, and they've bought into this idea of fully going 5 out and just, I mean, there's a lot of ball screen actions, what do you call it? The zoom actions that they run. Bill Self got really creative.
Yeah.
And he's done a really good job with it.
And
the only loss they
KJ
had
Adams
was 17.
still puts pressure on the rim, even though he's not posting up in a traditional manner. Like he's still got rim pressure there. And you have probably, dude, I'm DeJuan, man, like got to be one of the best point guards in the country. And his stats don't stand out like crazy, but like Kansas has a point guard that you talk about point guard playing the tournament, like he's going to make it happen. Like he is so impressive. Plus, you got all those guys. I think KJ Adams is he's such a lob threat and such a good athlete that he rolls so fast. Like there's some guys that are rim threats that roll and they're huge. Like Udoka Azubuike was huge. Like KJ Adams is just fast. Like he covers ground so quickly and he explodes so quickly that like he just adds a different element to that team.
Here's my question.
Okay.
Would you rather be in Kansas's role, where when you turn the page to March, you've just gone through 2+ months of seeing anything and everything, all levels of toughness? Or would you rather be Houston, who maybe had a chance to kind of coast at times and might be better off for it and fresh?
Honestly, I think I'd rather be in Houston's shoes. If you know that you have the same quality of team, because I think the AAC is good enough where you're not necessarily going to fall into bad habits playing over and over against them. Like you still have to play well, whereas Gonzaga can kind of show up and win a lot of these games in normal years in the WCC.
If you're a coach, you definitely want Houston.
Yeah. You're not going to be as banged up. It's not going to be as physical. You're not going to, I think you have less to worry about with like tired legs, maybe less sprained ankles or hamstring injuries or kind of muscle fatigue, things like that. So I think it's also less of a mental wear and tear. The thing I'd be worried about is people just kind of fading in and out, right? Like with Kansas, those guys are going to be locked in for the next 3 months.
And at Kansas, you're going to have experience in close games. And in the tournament, that's obviously a huge thing. I think, to be contrarian, like you want those tournament type atmospheres, those tournament type last 4 minutes of the game situations. Yeah, and now it is much harder over the course of the entire season. I understand that, but I'm speaking strictly from a preparation standpoint of the NCAA tournament, pending that both teams stay healthy through the rest of the season, right? I mean, obviously there's a lot of banging going on in Big 12, but like, at the same time, if you're able to stay healthy, I think I'd rather have Kansas's position, especially with the talent they have. I think that's a hell of a caveat. But if they're able to stay healthy, I would want Kansas's just because I'm more prepared for the tight games that happen in March.
Yep. All right. Time to get into the overreactions. I got 6 minutes on the clock for each one of these. That's mostly to make sure that that none of us ramble too much. So we're going to start with this. Overreaction number 1. Kentucky and Indiana are both going to miss the NCAA tournament in the year of our Lord 2023. Fanta, you're shaking your head.
That's an overreaction. Indiana will figure something out. I'm disappointed in them. I know that they're hurt. I get it with Xavier Johnson and Race Thompson. But Jalen Hood-Schifino goes for 33 points, and you lost at home to Northwestern. Now, credit to Chris Collins' group. He's got veterans. They need to win this year. It's a great win. Northwestern would be in the NCAA tournament today. Having said this, Indiana, what happened to you defensively? What is going on? You were up 22-4 on Iowa. You took your foot off the gas. You were ready to play the game. You took your foot off the gas. I sense at times Indiana lacks urgency. I sense complacency from Indiana. I get the sense with Indiana, how have they gotten better? Well, in reality, they haven't. Trace Jackson Davis is a great player. He's a great player. But I brought this up. There are some guys who have returned. They've been in college basketball so long that at some point it becomes a dog with old tricks that people have caught up with. And Indiana, to me, I don't sense anything. Like, where's the tweak coming from? Or where's the change coming from? I think they are who they are. I think Hood-Schifino's special. And I think they'll have enough to get there, to get to the NCAA tournament. Kentucky's in danger mode. They are.
One thing real quick on Indiana, they also have a win at Xavier and a win over North Carolina, 2 quad 1 wins already. And they play in a Big Ten that is a little bit, I think it's a little bit softer than the SEC. Go ahead, Fanta.
Right. Exactly. Indiana has racked up a couple of quality wins, the quad 1 wins, like you said, going to Xavier and winning. That win has now, I think if Xavier and Indiana played today, Xavier would win. But that was early in the season. and this happens in college basketball where wins either grow in value or, like we were talking about with Charleston, they played some teams they thought would be good or decent, and then the win doesn't have the same value. Mm-hmm. Here's the deal with Kentucky. Kentucky, I'm concerned about, and if you're a Wildcat fan, you should be too. Kentucky is 0-4 against Quadrant 1. They do not look capable of beating one of the teams that we listed in Tier 1, and I don't think they're capable right now of beating anybody in Tier 2. Well, the SEC's got plenty of those teams in Tiers 1 and 2. And Kentucky's schedule, when you look at it, they're at Tennessee this Saturday. They're winning that game? No chance. They're not winning that game. Right. Their SEC Big 12 Challenge game is against Kansas. You think they're going to beat Kansas? I don't see it. It ain't happening. The game might be in Lexington. Doesn't matter to me. They're 0-4 against Quadrant 1. They have 9 combined wins against Quad 3, Quad 4. They have 1 Quad 2 win. They haven't done anything. If their name wasn't Kentucky, we wouldn't be talking about them. We wouldn't be talking about them. They haven't gotten better. Their offense isn't good. I don't see it.
Yep. They gave up. When was the last time that you saw a Kentucky team quit in a situation like that?
Terrible.
They kind of rolled over and died at Alabama. And Alabama was good. But that was the first time. That was the first time that I watched Kentucky, and I was like, I don't even think the fight's there, right? I know that they lost by 10 to UCLA, and they lost at Gonzaga by 16, but they were competing in that. They made a couple runs late, and they got smacked around by Missouri. But again, they made a couple runs late. They just rolled over and died at Alabama. And that was the biggest red flag to me.
Yeah, it's the ultimate mismatch in terms of styles. And when just one team tries to do one thing, when another team tries, like Nate Oates and how they try to push the ball and play small and shoot threes and play with pace and all that stuff, Kentucky pounds the air out of the ball. And like that's kind of what that happens. But going back to your question, am I worried about Kentucky? If you look at their schedule, a win over Michigan, a win over LSU, who played them tight, and LSU's number 80 on KenPom. So it's like LSU's been fine, but Kentucky, it's like, when are you going to get your marquee win? They need something soon. Like if they can win at Tennessee, that changes the tone a little bit. That's going to be very difficult though.
They're not winning that game.
Tennessee can throw bodies at Big Sheep, bodies, plural. Like it's unbelievable.
If they can win at Tennessee, right? If they can win it, that's like, you know what? If I win the lottery, then that'll bring my gambling winnings into the positives this year, right?
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, like it'd be like talking about me being in a swimsuit edition this summer. It ain't happening.
I'd buy that calendar.
I know you would.
I'd buy it too.
I know you would. Here's the deal too. I might have to get an NIL deal with a calendar now that you say it. All right. Here's the deal, though. Whereas the Big Ten, 12 of the Big Ten's 14 teams are in the conversation for a tournament bid. The top of the SEC is great, but the SEC's back half, as you fellas know, is not particularly strong.
Yeah.
So Kentucky, where they sit, they're at a crossroads. Like they're literally at a crossroads in the net. They're 46 in the net. There are 6 SEC teams ahead of them in the net. The net actually does a good job summing up the SEC. So I don't think they're good enough to beat 4 or 5 teams in the SEC, whether the game's in Lexington or there. The next highest team in the net in the SEC is Florida at 70. So my point is, it's not like this league has infinite chances to get resume wins.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, you're right. I know time is going pretty short, but just to reference Indiana real quick, I think Race Thompson meant more to that team than just the numbers. Like as soon as he got injured, and Iowa was making a bit of a run, there's no doubt. But as soon as he got injured, it was like they let the air out of the balloon a little bit. It was like, man,
they are a mess defensively without.
Yeah, well, let me just say this: if they're
fucked up,
if it's close, both teams are getting the benefit of the doubt, and I have a feeling it's going to be close. Like so, I'd be. I think it's an overreaction.
All right, so overreaction number 2 might have an impact on overreaction number 1. The Big 12 can get not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7, but 8 teams into the NCAA tournament this year. T.O., overreaction or no?
No, that's a proper reaction. And so many different teams, so many quality wins. That's the big thing that you look at in terms of this. Look at Baylor. Everybody think, do you guys think Baylor's a tournament team? Do you think Baylor's a tournament team?
Yes.
They're 0-3 in conference.
Yeah,
like that's not going to last.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, the last time Scott Drew was 0-3 in Big 12 play?
I don't know.
2006, the year that he wasn't allowed to play any non-conference games.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, talk about the job that guy's done a little bit later, but they have tournament teams at the bottom of the league right now. The only team that I was apprehensive about is Oklahoma, and they've been much better than a lot of people thought. So that entire league on a night-to-night basis, they're going to beat the heck out of each other. And there's no shame in going, what is it? How many league games they play? They play 18 league games. There's no shame in going, 7 and whatever that is, 7-11, 8-10. I don't know. My math is terrible, but like, there's no shame in that record. You're going to get into the tournament with those records. Like, I think that one's pretty easy to see. Shockingly enough, our guys at Kansas State continue to be good. And it's, when they were picked at the bottom, guys, they were picked at the bottom, and now they're performing at the top. Like it's a league that is relentless on every given night. I think you can get 8, possibly 9 in there.
Yeah. So the biggest issue is going to be, I think every team in the league is in a vacuum good enough to get in. But the problem is someone's going to go 4-14 in league play.
That's right.
It might end up being Texas Tech, so like it's just, there's going to be some team that doesn't get it going. The bottom falls out. And once they kind of hit a point where they know their season's done, the motivation is going to stop being there. So that's my big only issue with them getting more than 8 in, is that I just don't think that there's enough. Like, someone has to lose. It's a zero-sum game. You either win or you lose, right?
Right.
Very, very important game in the Big 12 on Wednesday night in Morgantown. Baylor at West Virginia. I'm starting to get concerned about West Virginia because they were up at Kansas State. They raced out to like a 17-2 lead in that game. They unraveled. And I really like Stevenson and what he does for them. And I think they've got some quality talent, better than they've had. Toussaint was a nice ad for Huggy Bear. But guys, defensively, West Virginia can have lapses. They couldn't guard against Kansas State. They've had trouble guarding as well in other areas. And I'm worried about the Mountaineers here now at 0-3 in conference play. Can they recover? Well, of course they can, but you didn't beat Oklahoma State. You got run by Kansas. That's to be expected. But I'll tell you what, you don't want to be 0-4. So that home game against Baylor is now a massive, massive game on Wednesday. It's got to be the most important conference game we've seen between a pair of 0-3 teams in their league that you're ever going to see. I'm not worried about Baylor. I think they'll figure some things out. I don't think it's an overreaction.
I'm a little worried about them. Fanta. And like, we could tie this into the conversation about Kansas State, because Kansas State at Baylor was a thrilling matchup. But Baylor, like,
that's why I'm not worried about them.
The defense just isn't quite there, right? It's not the same level of defense for this team. So when
you say the same level of defense, like, they've been national championship contenders. Like, we're talking about getting into the tournament.
That's what I mean.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that's the big thing. Like, we've become so accustomed to watching Baylor being national title contenders.
Yeah.
Like, is this team that? I don't think so. But I think, it's a tournament team. It's a tournament team.
It's still a team I wouldn't want to play.
I agree with you, but I in a league that is as difficult as the Big 12 is, like, I think that Scott will find a way to kind of put it together. And there's too many good guards on that team. But it's I don't know. Like, to me, it kind of feels like eight, nine.
They've lost back-to-back games in the Big 12 by a combined 3 points.
Fair.
North Carolina was in the Final Four. They were an 8 seed.
Fair.
So, I mean,
you want to hear a wild stat about the Big 12? There have been 15 Big 12 conference games so far this season, right? 15. 9 of those 15, when they ended, when that regulation ended, it was either overtime or the final score was a 1-possession game. 9 of the 15 games.
That's
insane.
That's an awesome stat.
All 5 road teams won the Big 12 on Saturday.
Really?
Yes, all 5 road teams. The league is ridiculous. There's no way you can project this conference.
Can I say something? I want to say something about the Big 12 for just a moment, and I'm being careful here with what I say, but I got to be candid with you.
Oh boy.
You got to get the majority of your games on linear television.
Yes. Yes. The fact that the game of the season I couldn't watch on my TV, right? I had to watch it on my laptop. I had to watch it on my computer. It's baffling. You got to be able to do it. Since when did the Big 12 become Pac-12 network? Right? Like if you can't watch a game
change is coming because they got some network deals lined up, and we're going to see more Big 12 games on not just cable television, but big broadcast TV.
Hey,
it's coming.
You could get the Field of 68 broadcasting Furman against Stephen F. Austin on your TV if you just use the YouTube app. And I couldn't get the game between Baylor and Kansas State, which for my money was the game of the year to date, the best game that we've seen this season to date. I couldn't get it on my TV without like airdropping it there or airplaying it. It's insane. By the way, I got another stat for you guys. Buckle up. You ready for this? Marquise Noel, last 2 games has 68 points, 23 assists. In the last 10 years, there have been 3 players that in a 2-game stretch had 65 points and 20 plus assists. One of them was Marquise Noel. Can you guys guess the other 2? It should be obvious. It should be very obvious.
I know the answer to this, but I'm gonna let Fanta.
Yeah. Trae Young.
Yeah. Trae Young is one of them.
And the other one should be obvious.
Yes. All-American, number 2 pick in 2019. Played for Murray State.
Oh, John
Morant. So with that said, we can move on to the third overreaction.
Wow, great stat. You need to tweet that.
It's been tweeted and mentioned on every Field of 68 thing that I've been on for the last 2 days. So
phenomenal.
All right. T.O., we're going to you first on this one. I feel like this one is a little bit of a hot take, but I'm still kind of here for it. All right. Overreaction number 3. Jon Scheyer, he ain't ready for the ACC.
Stop it. Stop. Hey, look, there's growing pains that come with coaching. Like, if you want to look back, like, I had this conversation this morning. I did a radio hit out of Charlotte this morning. It's like, you got to wait and give my man a little time because there's growing pains. And it's not like Coach K was like easing him into it. Like Jon Scheyer was Coach K's assistant coach all last season. There was no like, hey, I'm going to let you run this. I'm going to let you do this. No, that was Coach K's show. Like, there's going to be some times where he's going to be difficult. I almost want to reach out to him and be like, hey, man, are you okay after that NC State game? Did you all see the post-game presser? My man needed a nap. Like, I was a little like, go back and look at his face. He's like, we just got to figure some things out. I was like, poor John, man. He's stressed out of his head. Like, give him time. He's the right guy for the job. We can be as negative as we want about Duke. They're still 12-4. They're still going to be okay. Like, I think NC State's a tournament team.
Yeah, I do too.
I think Wake Forest is a tournament team. I think Purdue is a tournament team. I think Kansas is a tournament team.
T.O., now you're going a step too far.
I think Kansas is a tournament team. That's their 4 losses. That's their 4 losses. And they've had some pretty good wins. They beat Ohio State. They beat Xavier. Like,
they're dancing. They're dancing.
They're dancing. Like, they're going to be fine.
Is Wake Forest a tournament team?
I think they'll find a way to get there.
Yep. Their quad 1 situation is pretty nice this year. Like last year, they didn't have any quad 1s. This year they do. They're going to be fine.
They have 2 quad 1 wins. You're right. All right.
So Wake Forest is going to make the tournament this year.
Honestly, I think the biggest takeaway from anything that's going on with Duke right now is, hey, when you got a bunch of freshmen on your roster and a new head coach, it would be nice if your point guard didn't have a fucked up toe.
Dude, let me tell you something. I've dealt with turf toe. That is nothing to sneeze at.
Yes,
like that is painful. Like every pivot, every turn, every step, like it hurts. And let's look at it this way too. This kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier today. Like this extra year of eligibility, that's a really good bunch of freshmen. Now they're playing against 23 and 24-year-old men as opposed to 22-year-old men. Big difference. Like big difference. Look around the conference. Look around the ACC.
And it also look
around the Big East, Fanta. Bunch of old dudes. Half of them got mortgages.
And
like it's a bunch of old dudes this year.
And it also doesn't help that like this year's freshman class just was not that. You got Derek Lively and Derek Whitehead, who were probably the 2 best freshmen in the recruiting class, right? But they ain't Zion Williamson and RJ Barrett, like that's the reason I was saying how important Jones. So like, not every 5-star freshman is the same. Not every number 1 freshman is the same. Same way I said that like this year's number 1 team would be like a 7 or 8 the 7th or 8th best team in a different season, this year's number 1 recruit would be like the 7th or 8th best recruit. Here's a perfect example why. The Thompson twins are playing overtime elite, and Scoot Henderson's in the G League Ignite. Imagine if they were on Duke.
If they were at Duke,
well,
if Scoot was at Duke, we'd be having a very different conversation.
Yeah,
that dude can go.
Yeah,
no,
yeah. I mean, that's why Jeremy Roach was so incredibly important to them, and that's why I thought he would have a good year, and he's had a decent enough year. So
it's hard. Like I know Fanta is the biggest anti Jeremy Roach guy on the planet. I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with you. But like he was having a good season until this toe thing popped up, and it was Iowa, right? It was the wasn't that the game at the Jimmy V when he heard it? When did he hear it? I think it was the Jimmy V, right?
And he had a great game. Yeah, and he had a great game, and they let me know about it in the hallway. Which okay, I'm glad that Duke listened.
Duke did. Duke let you know.
Oh yeah, Scheyer.
The players or John?
Scheyer comes up to me in the hallway and looks at me and says, I told you he would be our most important player. I told this was coming the whole time. And then he's like, you see what just happened? He goes, did you watch the game? Did you watch what just happened? I go, he's a great player. And then
John's got some shit to him now. John has some shit to him. He is the nicest guy, but man, he's got some shit to him. He's got
a baby face, man, but he'll let you know.
He's got some stuff to him now. Like he's going to be fine.
Jewish Jordan in high school, he ultra competitor, and that's why he was pissed off about losing to NC State. He's going to be fine. He's so cut out from the right cloth. I think he's the perfect fit for Duke going forward too. Like he is such a competitor, and doing a feature on him ahead of the season revealed that everybody around him said, and like not puff stuff. They're like, there's just no doubt he'll win, and he'll win a lot because he refuses to lose. That's the common thread he has with Mike Krzyzewski. So I'm not saying he's going to be the next Coach K, but I think let's pump the brakes on our overreactions or whatnot. I think Duke's going to be fine. I think it's a result of having freshmen, but I also think for me, the offensive end of the floor for them can be challenging because without Roach running the show, you're now counting on, again, freshmen. And Dariq Whitehead's had ups, had downs. He's had injury, obviously. Injuries affecting this team.
You don't have an initiator, right? And other than Roach,
they don't.
The only other point guard on the roster is a 17-year-old freshman instead of like a regular freshman. So it was a rough hand that he was dealt. Like that was the one you could deal with injuries if you're Duke. The one guy that could not be hurt is Jeremy Roach, and he's just not himself. All right,
I have something to say though. Don't you dare disrespect Tamir Goodman, Jewish Jordan. Don't you dare disrespect him. That dude can play too now. That dude can play.
While we're here, this is me. Run the ISO for T.O. T.O., why is Clemson the best team in the ACC? You have 1 minute. Get on your soapbox. Come on. Get on your bandwagon. Let them know. Let them know why Clemson's the best team in the ACC.
You know what happened is they moved arguably their most athletic player to the point guard spot. He had been playing beside Alamir Dawes, who transferred to Seton Hall, and Al has his flaws, but he also has his strengths. Nick Honor goes from Clemson to Mizzou. He's doing fine there. But what happened was you moved those guys out of the way, and Chase Hunter had to slide over the one. So you have this big, strong, dynamic athlete at the point guard position who can guard the point guard position. He can guard the 2, the 3. You have Hunter Tyson, who's taken advantage of his 8th year of eligibility. And in my mind, guys, like that's a first-team All-ACC player right now. He's been incredible. He's had a 31-15 game. I believe it was against NC State a week or two ago. Like he has been that guy, and they still have that centerpiece that they can run things through in PJ Hall. Clemson is that freaking good. Are they going to win the regular season? I don't know. Their schedule's favorable, though. No trip to Miami, no trip to Cameron Indoor. There's only 3 games on their schedule that I would be like, ooh, that one's going to be tough. The rest are winnable. Like this team is for real. They're well coached and they're bigger around the perimeter. The roster fits Brad Brownell much better than the last few seasons when he's trying to play too small. Whenever he was 5'9" and 6 foot at the 1 and the 2. Now they're bigger. Now they get to spots faster, and they've gone to the bigger lineup ever since losing from Loyola Chicago. They've gone to a bigger lineup with R.J. Godfrey, Hunter Tyson, and P.J. Hull at the 3, 4, 5. And then they have some athletes at the 1 and 2 with Chase Hunter and whoever else they play at that 2 spot. This is going to be a very good team, a very tough out for any team the rest of the season, and they are that good. They are that good.
Yep. All right, Fanta, overreaction number 4. Arizona has been exposed.
That's not an overreaction. It's a proper reaction. They have been exposed. And what they've shown is a couple of things. Number one, they don't possess a lot of depth. They basically go 6 deep. And number two is if you get up in Kerr Kriisa and Courtney Ramey and guard them and pressure them and really pressure the ball, and you say, you know what? Azuolas Tubelis is a great player. He's going to get his. He's going to get his. Kind of like Zach Edey's getting his, guys. But then you say, defensively, we're going to guard the perimeter like our lives are on the line. That we could take away Arizona. Arizona's guard play is frenetic. As much as we love Kerr Kriisa, and when he's great, and Headband Kerr, he's great for college basketball. There's inconsistencies. And it's honestly startling because upon facing Tennessee, after that game, we're sitting there saying there's a reasonable case to make Arizona the best, if not second best team in college basketball at the moment. Because they beat Tennessee's great defense. But now what? Just 61 points against Washington State. They could have very well lost to Washington. They score 70 points in that game. By their standards, that's not who they've been. So offensively, this team is struggling. And I think it goes back to the fact that, at the end of the day, Ramey's transferring for a reason. He's a quality player. Kerr Kriisa is a quality player, but he can be up and down. Their backcourt doesn't have total elite consistency. And in the Pac-12, a league with, at the end of the day, quality coaches that are better than one might think, teams are going to expose you. And I think that's what happened here with Arizona.
So let me catch up here. So Washington State pressured the ball. That's what happened. And they made those guys struggle. You look at whenever you guard big teams, a lot of guys, the first thought they do is, hey, we're going to back off a little bit. Yep. We're going to try to protect the pass into the paint. Well, if you look at recent memory, just 2 games that stand out to me, for example, Washington State, Arizona, you pressure the guards. You pressure the guards like crazy. Those post players do their best to push out post players to make them operate one dribble more out from the paint. Yes. Just one dribble. Your efficiency goes down drastically. Just one more dribble further out away from the paint. Who's another team that just lost with a really good big man? They just won their next game. Purdue and Rutgers. What does Rutgers do? They pressure the hell out of your guards. The hell out of your guards, and they're exceedingly physical. They made Zach Edey catch that ball 2-3 feet further out, and what that does, that adds a dribble. Your efficiency goes down. That's kind of where I'm at when it comes to that. So there is a method to that madness. Now, it's not easy to guard Kerr Kriisa, 94 feet or whatever. It's not easy to guard Courtney Ramey 94 feet. But what you can do is you can pressure some of these passes into the post and push them out. If they're just a little bit off, it screws up timing. Yes. And Arizona, who plays at that pace, you screw up their timing, it slows them down to a point to where they might be a little uncomfortable. And can I say something about Kerr Kriisa's headband? That's not a headband. That's one of those volleyball players I have to keep my hair down.
He mixes it up.
He needs to put a regular headband on.
That you think that's a problem? Is he's going with that's what it is. He
says he's going with a cheerleader headband.
He told me the thicker headband is too hot, so he has to go with the smaller headband because he sweats a little too much.
And then so he's just keeping this little cheerleader headband to keep up appearances with the headband curve shirt.
I guess so. The one thing that I will
change the design of that shirt and give him a little shoestring around his head.
The one thing I will add to that is so much of what Arizona gets is when they're running the floor. I don't know if you would necessarily call it transition, but it's running the floor, right? It's big guys beating each other down the floor. The easiest way to get those opportunities is getting stops and getting the ball out, because when you got to take the ball through the net and take it out of bounds and inbound it, it just adds another step, adds another second, makes it that much easier for the defense to get back. The last 3 games prior to the Arizona State game, Arizona led the nation in field goal percentage, right? Led the nation. The last 3 games, they have shot under 40% from the floor, 38% against Arizona State, 36% against Washington, 32% against Washington State. So part of the issues that they're having offensively is because they're not getting stops and they're not getting the easy buckets. And we don't get out and run. That's one thing that'll stop you. Coming up here, Fanta, Overreaction number 5.
Yes.
After beating Big Ten leaders, Wisconsin, Illinois is officially back, baby. They're 1-3 in the Big Ten, but they are back. Coleman Hawkins dropped 20. He was 6 for 9, a very nice 66.6% from 3. Coleman Hawkins is back, baby.
Terrence non-directional school. Non-directional school.
It was not a directional school. He had 24 points. Terrence Shannon. He is back. The Illini, Daddy Brad, they are back. Daddy is no longer mad.
I'm going to let you go there, Fanta.
That's an overreaction.
Fanta took his glasses off. I'm going to let him go.
That's an overreaction. And I like the Illini's potential upside. If you're power ranking the Big Ten, you sit there and you're in a conundrum because you're trying to figure out what happens after Purdue and how you would place these teams. A lot of tournament teams, but could be a lot of teams mixed in 7, 10, 8, 9 games, those types of games. Here's the thing. Illinois is not back. They are an inconsistent basketball team that has some issues in their locker room. And when you have issues in your locker room, you don't know what you're getting day to day. You do not know what you're getting day to day. So as quickly as it can be good, it's as quickly as it can be bad. I also think that there's some edge that comes out when teams in the Big Ten play Wisconsin. And I think Wisconsin was due for a loss, and Illinois doesn't like Wisconsin, and other teams don't like Wisconsin because they're just this tough, rugged team that doesn't seem to give a damn what you think, and they're going to play chippy, they're going to play gritty, and they're going to grind you down. Well, it's hard to do that in Champaign, and Illinois had it come into Wisconsin. They got
a lot of coaches' sons on that team, right? A lot of guys that just play the right way.
The right way.
They're always the first one in the gym, the last one to leave the gym. A lot of guys like that. Huh?
That's right. And Illinois, exactly, the broadcaster cliches. Here's the thing about Illinois. Illinois doesn't lack toughness. Illinois got toughness. Illinois got an it factor that when they switch into another gear, they can play great basketball. But connectivity is something that's come and gone with the mixture of freshmen and upperclassmen. I'm not exactly sure, and transfers, of course, I'm not exactly sure still if I can trust that team. And that's why, T.O., I cannot sit here and say that the Illini are back.
Overreaction, just because you don't know what you're getting from night to night. I think that's the big thing. Now, that all being said, the team still has talent, and they're still trying to figure it out. But you want to talk about – I talked about for Brad Underwood's Christmas present, I was going to get him some Dramamine because they just rock back and forth. They haven't won. Okay, they haven't won 2 in a row. They haven't lost 2 in a row. And what, the last 10 meetings? So they're win-loss, 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 win-loss. Like, that is that's tough if you're a coach. Like, you think you're starting to right the ship a little bit. Now, they do have a good opportunity at Nebraska. Is Nebraska great? No, they're a little improved, but that's your chance to kind of string 2 together in a row. But, over the next 3 games, Michigan State, you have at Nebraska, Michigan State at home, Minnesota away, and then you have Indiana at home. That's 4 that you could win. Now, you rattle off those 4, we can talk a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I tend to agree with all of that. I think the biggest point is the point that I think both of you guys kind of alluded to. The issue is not the talent. The issue is not the toughness. The issue is everybody kind of getting along, right? Everyone being friends, everyone kind of running what they need to do, making the extra pass. It's not your turn to go one-on-one, my turn to go around, blah, 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 all that. I think that winning helps solve a lot of those issues, right? And I also think being better defensively, Sky Clark, I think part of the reason why he was moved out of the starting lineup against Northwestern was the issues he had defensively. He's not really the greatest defender in the world. So I think they'll be better without him. Anything else to add on Illinois? Can we move on? Because I got a fun one for the last overreaction.
We can move on.
Last overreaction. The best guy for Texas to hire to turn that program into a consistent top 5 program in college basketball is none other than Bruce Pearl. T.O. Overreaction, underreaction, proper reaction, crazy take, hot take. What do you got?
I understand the intrigue there, and he would be great at Texas. Let's not get it twisted. He would be great at Texas. I don't think Bruce is going anywhere. I just initial thoughts. I don't think Bruce is going anywhere. I actually think it's going to. I think they're going to take a swing at Jerome Tang, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Knows Texas, was at Baylor forever, and his initial success suggests that he's going to be fine. I think that could be your guy if you're a Longhorns fan. We talked about him at the beginning of this podcast, guys. You know who would just kill it? Like, you need somebody that's going to showcase the program a little bit. You need somebody with energy. You need somebody that's going to be able to sell the city of Austin, to get them to games and to sell recruits to the city of Austin. Freaking Pat Kelsey would kill it. And X and O wise, I'm telling you, he's there and he'd be fine in the Big 12. There wouldn't be a drop off there. That's my only thing. A lot of people are going to be like, well, has he done enough to warrant consideration from arguably a top 20 job in the country? I don't know. He's won a lot of games at Winthrop. He's going to win a lot of games at Charleston. But I'm telling you, from a personality perspective, from an X and O perspective, he's there and he can do it.
Well, I think it's a proper reaction to say that Bruce Pearl is a top choice and perhaps the best choice, because he is an elite CEO of a program. And you have to be at Texas. It's a top 10 job, but it's not a top 10 fan base. All right.
I agree with that. That's a good point.
You got to be, it's a top 10 brand. It's a top 10 job, top 10 resources, but you got to be able to bring people together. And now you're really, what's that?
Go ahead. Finish your point. Sorry.
You really have to bring people together. I mean, now this is more than a basketball hire. This is a human hire that they've got to get right because they need someone to do things in an appropriate and right way and tone and all that. So here's the thing with Bruce. Bruce is the perfect mix of all those things. He's a quality coach. I think he's maxed out at Auburn. He's done everything he could do at Auburn. He got them to a Final Four. He's proven that they're a consistent force in the SEC. I think if somebody else was coaching Auburn, I don't think you'd see them constantly in the top 25 every year. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. So for me, all roads must come to an end at some point. I think Bruce not only is a fitting choice, but I think in Bruce's career arc that this for him is a natural move. That's my take.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned selling the program, right? Look at how wild that Auburn Arena fan base is, that Auburn Arena crowd is. They have one of the toughest home courts in the SEC right now. Auburn, the University of Auburn, the Tigers have one of the toughest home courts in the SEC. Think about that. That was a program that no one went to games for like 2 decades. Between Chris Porter and Bruce Pearl, did anybody actually see an Auburn basketball game in person? I don't know if anybody did. Now you let him go and sell that new arena, all those facilities that we saw down there at Texas. I just think he brings a lot of the same qualities as Chris Beard does, which is what made Chris Beard such an appealing hire when they brought him in, right? He will go out in the community and he will sell it. Now, Jerome Tang will do the same thing, and you're not wrong on Tang at all. I think Tang is a perfect fit. I think he's a great hire. I would just tend to lean towards hiring the guy that has a proven track record of success as opposed to someone that's done it for 15 games. You know what I'm saying? But I don't think Tang is the wrong hire.
Right. I mean, 14-1. So now you're the Texas coach. Nothing against Jerome, but I don't know. Let's see how things play out. But wait a minute. This is Field of 68 breaking news. Travis Branham reports at this hour. Hey, everybody, just wanted to pass along a small notice what begins probably a months-long process of Texas figuring out its future as it relates to the next basketball coach. I noted Kentucky's Sean Calipari is a name to watch on Eric Bossie's list of candidates. A source tells me at this hour that Texas has contacted Calipari already through back channels. I figure this will be denied by both sides. I live in Lexington and can tell you the vibes are not great between Cal, the administration, fans, boosters, and him. I do suspect that if a competitive offer is made, then Cal would likely jump at it. This has been Field of 68 breaking news.
I didn't know we got our own music.
Wasn't that from 3 days ago that Travis put that out? When did he put that out there?
Well, let's see here.
Whatever it was, I don't.
He put this out today that they've now had real dialogue, that there's real dialogue happening.
Okay.
He put out the Cal's a candidate. Now he's reporting that Texas has reached out to Cal. Should Texas hire John Calipari, and should Cal leave? Oh.
If Cal can get Texas, I think it would make a lot of sense to leave and go get a fresh start. Your life will be a lot less miserable living in Austin when you don't have every single move scrutinized by a fan base that is dying to win, that doesn't want you there anymore. The salary will be close enough that it won't matter, right? And he probably has enough in the bank that it doesn't matter. His grandkids are going to be able to be just fine. I think if you're Cal, you jump at that opportunity to get the soft landing, because you'll probably be able to bring your recruiting class with you from Lexington
no question
to Austin.
Yeah, of course.
But what I would also say is this: if you're Texas, no, you're Texas. You can go out and get whatever kind of innovative. No, you don't need a recruiter there. You need someone that is going to be able to play good basketball, that will be able to get people in the seats. I think no. I think no, if you're Texas.
Shaka Smart would be great at Texas.
Honestly, Shaka playing the way that he is right now at Marquette would be pretty good at Texas.
Okay. So nope. I'm going against that one because I'm going against that one.
Texas, you're disagreeing?
Yeah, at Texas, you have to win the offseason. You have to win the offseason too. Like, that's almost as big as the games. Like, you got to win the offseason and then you got to win games. Like,
what if you win the games? Who cares about the offseason?
You think Texas would have been okay going, 12 and whatever over the first 3 years of Shaka's tenure? I don't think so. And I also think, like, you have to get 5-star guys. You got to get them to play together. And that is a coaching ringer, the Big 12. A ringer. Like, you have to be able to keep up on that side too.
Can I throw out a name for Texas?
Sure. Go ahead.
I already said Pat Kelsey.
I'm just going out of the box here. Totally out of the box. What about Dana Altman?
I think he's a terrific coach. Nike ties make sense, but like, I don't know. Dana kind of, I don't know if he's looking to get out of Oregon. I don't know where you go from Oregon.
You go to Texas.
But the biggest issue to me is he's not someone that's going to get out in the community and sell the program the way that I think you need it to be sold.
Okay.
Right. Like, I don't think that you need a basketball coach in there. I think that you need someone that is going to be a promoter. And that's why, like, to me, Bruce Pearl is the guy. Chris Beard, the one thing that he did really, really well was get out in the community and find creative ways to get people involved in the program. Like, one of the things he told us when we were down there was, like, he was reaching out to, like, the big Hispanic populations and giving them free tickets to games that people weren't going to against kind of like buy game smaller opponents. So now you get that community locked in. All of a sudden you have a generation of Texas basketball fans that are going to be coming to games. And it's not about tickets. Like, the day-to-day money coming in from ticket sales for Texas is a drop in the bucket. It's about having butts in seats and people caring about it. People know when to yell and when to cheer, when to go nuts. That's why Texas Tech is so hard to win at right now. Well, not right now, because things have happened there, but that's how you get the fans in the seats. All right.
Go
ahead.
We haven't been on since. It's the completion of one of the all-time flameouts of a coach in college basketball history. I mean, Chris Beard was in a national championship game in 2019 and had Texas as the number 2 team in the country 5 weeks ago, and he is unemployed and won't be employed in some time. So, like, it is one
of the wildest ones.
It's one of the wildest flameouts we have ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
The guy went from, and I hate
top of the world.
Yeah, top of the world, number 2 in the country. Really good team. Moody Center's rocking. We saw him in pinstripes. Like, you don't talk about high of highs to the low of lows. Mm-hmm. Gosh.
Brutal. Yep. You just did a Brad Underwood at the podium.
Oh, yeah.
Brad Underwood, another guy that I think would be very good, a good fit at Texas, a guy that would do very well there. All right. I told you that I wanted to end the show with the one thing that you're looking forward to this week. It is Monday. Tonight, there is the College Football National Championship game, but there's a lot of other stuff going on with college hoops this week. T.O., going to you first. What are you looking forward to most this week in college basketball?
All right. So Clemson plays Louisville Wednesday. If they can get by Louisville, which conventional wisdom would suggest they would, the Dukies come to town. If they're able to do those two games and start out 7-0 in conference, watch out. My level of shit talk is going to hit an all-time high, gentlemen, and it won't stop on the DTF.
No. Hey,
it will not
Clemson, UConn of the national title game. Buckle up, fellas.
Oh my
Dude,
God.
buckle up.
Buckle up.
You want bigs? We got bigs.
Oh my God.
That's what, hey, in all seriousness, that's what I'm looking forward to. If they could get by Louisville, which you would think they would, because Louisville's Louisville this year. That Duke game at home on Saturday is going to be a bear, and it's going to be loud in there.
I love how T.O. can just, navigate his way between being a Clemson fan and a Tennessee fan whenever it seems fit.
Whenever convenient. Whenever's
convenient. All right, Fanta, what are you looking forward to the most?
Wednesday night. Wednesday night may end up being better than Saturday, which doesn't happen often in college basketball where a weeknight ends up better than a weekend day. But guys, on Wednesday, we have 3 ranked versus ranked games. Alabama at Arkansas. Fayetteville will be vibrating. That place is going to be off the walls on Wednesday night. UConn at Marquette. I'm going out to Milwaukee for this one. Fiserv Forum is such a great venue. Awesome crowd. UConn gets tested on the road again. Tyler Kolek is having a ridiculous season. UConn's point guard play can be a bit up and down. So what happens in that one? And how does UConn guard, or how does Marquette guard UConn? Marquette is a team. They're all about spacing and 5 out. And Oso Iguodala's having a nice year. He faces his biggest defensive test of the season on Wednesday night. TCU at Texas. High-level game in Austin. Can't wait to see that one as well. 2 terrific defensive teams. Mike Miles on one side, Marcus Carr on the other. It's going to be fun. Then Charleston at UNC Wilmington. Rarely do you see the 2 teams with the longest winning streaks in the country from the same conference. Rarely do you see the 2 teams on those winning streaks play each other. Wednesday night in Wilmington at 7 Eastern time. It's the Cougars and the Seahawks. Wednesday's loaded. Pittsburgh and Duke are playing. Creighton's at Xavier. Cancel all your Wednesday night plans and watch college basketball. That's a multi-screen night.
All right.
Hey, Virginia Tech at Syracuse. Tune into your boy. I'll be up there.
Yeah, there you go. Last thing I'll say, Marquette.
Shameless plug.
That's what I'm buckling up for, is the Marquette week that they have. We're going to find out a lot about the Golden Eagles this week. But listen, this has been the DTF podcast. This has been fun. It's been your overreactions Monday. I think that we properly overreacted to just about everything that happened in college basketball this week. So for John Fanta, for Terrence Oglesby, my name is Rob Doster. We will see you guys again next Monday.